Plantar fasciitis can be a hiker's worst nightmare. It can appear almost out of nowhere, it's very painful, and it can easily end your hike early. But even if you're not a hiker, it's a very common issue that 1 out of 10 people will experience in their lifetime, and that can make your daily life miserable. Hi, my name is Elli. I'm a long-distance hiker and backpacker, and I've had my fair share of plantar fasciitis on my last thru-hike. In today's video, I want to share with you my tips and what I did to completely heal my foot problems while on the trail. This video is not only for you hikers out there, but for everyone who suffers from plantar fasciitis and may even be helpful for preventing it. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional, so please always consult with your doctor and do your own research, especially if you're not sure if you're actually suffering from plantar fasciitis. There are some conditions that may present in a similar way, like a stress fracture or something like that. I can't give you any medical advice, I just want to share with you what worked for me personally based on my experience, but obviously things might be different for you, so please be aware of that. A bit of a backstory here. I actually never had any problems with plantar fasciitis or other foot problems before my last thru-hike last year. For those of you that are new to the channel, I hiked the length of Britain last year with my dog, and about 4 weeks into our 1600-mile long hike, I suddenly had a lot of pain in my foot, specifically in the area near the heel. At that point, I was in the middle of nowhere with my dog, so I was a bit on my own. So I had to do my own research. I talked a lot to my sister, who is a doctor, who advised me on some things, but basically I had to figure it out myself, and I quickly realized that I actually had plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is an inflammation of the plantar fascia, which is a thick band of tissue that runs along the bottom of your foot, basically connecting the heel to the toes. And it basically acts like a shock-absorbing bowstring that supports the structure, the arch of your foot. Plantar fasciitis can be caused by a lot of different things, a lot of different factors. And I think it's important to know these because with plantar fasciitis, same with other conditions, it's important to actually know the underlying issue, the underlying cause, so that you can really heal it and also to prevent it in the future. One big factor that can cause plantar fasciitis to develop is overuse of the plantar fascia. For example, when you're doing repetitive activities such as, for example, running or hiking also, obviously, or if you're just standing a lot, walking a lot. And these activities can put stress on the plantar fascia, can cause micro tears and also inflammation. And sometimes it's not the activity itself, but maybe you've made some changes to your activity. For example, you have walked longer distances suddenly, or you have a heavier pack, something like that. Just something that has changed in your activity that can lead to more stress on your structure of your foot. Another big factor in developing plantar fasciitis can be foot mechanics, or basically biomechanics of your legs, your feet. For example, if you have flat feet, or the opposite of that, feet with high arches where the arch of the foot is like higher up, or if you have a walking pattern that maybe causes more strain on one side, something like that, that can lead to plantar fasciitis to develop. And a third big factor is footwear. Not just the right footwear for you, but also maybe you have the right footwear, but maybe the cushion is worn down. A lot of us hike in trail runners and they just don't last thousands of kilometers. You're typically advised to change them every 500 to 700 miles, so that can be an issue too. The classic symptoms of plantar fasciitis to watch out for are a really sharp, almost like stinging heel pain or pain near the area of your heel, and the pain is usually worse after a longer period of rest, and that's the main symptom in the morning after you get up for these first steps. It was like that for me for my first steps, when I got up in the morning, I could barely walk. I was basically limping to get to the bathroom. I was in so much pain. It gets better during the activity itself, but as soon as you stop, take a break, sit for a little while, and then get up and start walking again, that's usually when it's at its worst. Unfortunately, there's no immediate treatment or a medication that a doctor could give you that will make it go away instantly. That's the sad news, unfortunately. But for most cases, people will recover with a conservative treatment, and that's what worked for me too, and what I'm talking about in this video. So here are my top tips that helped me to heal my plantar fasciitis for good. Number one is stopping, resting, and listening to your body. And this sounds very basic, but it actually can be very hard, especially if you're a thru-hiker or on a long distance hike. You always have that goal in mind. You want to go somewhere, you want to maybe hike with friends that you met on the trail, and you don't want to be like left behind, because you always have that goal you obviously want to hike on. And that's something that was really hard for me too, to realize that it's not sensible to hike on, because plantar fasciitis can become chronic and flare up again and again and again if you don't like treat it and if you don't heal it completely. So for me, a big learning was to only hike on if you're feeling better. I stopped for a few days, but then I started too soon and I had a total like relapse, because I couldn't even walk anymore then, and I had to really stop. And obviously that can be tough mentally. If you're not able to hike, you're probably not in the best place in your head. I wasn't, and it was really hard for me, but it's for the better, because you really don't want this to become chronic. A good indicator for me was to like evaluate the pain I had in the morning. Plantar fasciitis can take a long time to go away completely, so you could probably hike on even if the pain is not gone completely, but make sure to always like check your pain in the morning, and to see if it's worse than the day before, then you probably are not on a very good path and maybe need to slow down more or have another rest day. My second tip, and something that helped me a lot, is icing your foot and also pain medication. I iced my foot 2 to 3 times a day for 10 to 15 minutes. You can obviously also do that in a cold stream, in a lake, something like that. Just cool your foot. That can help with inflammation. And the same goes for anti-inflammatory medication like ibuprofen. That can maybe help with the inflammation, and obviously it will also make your life a bit easier, because walking can be very painful, even for just a few meters. I obviously tried not to overdo it, because you don't really want to mask your pain and your symptoms. You still want to check how your healing process is going, but it was definitely a short-term solution, and made my life a bit easier in the beginning. And then my tip number 3, and that's a bit of a tricky one, but it really helped me, is finding out the cause, the underlying cause, and why your plantar fasciitis happened. In order to do that, just try to examine your legs, your feet, and just basically check for tight muscles, if there are any issues. Ask yourself if you did something different before it started. Did you change shoes? Did you do a longer mileage? Something like that. Just basically try to identify any factors that could have played in that, because the more you know about why it happened, the better you can prevent it in the future. And obviously, depending on the cause of your plantar fasciitis, that will also play a role obviously in how you can cure it, how you can heal it. When I got plantar fasciitis, I obviously started to Google a lot, and a lot of people online were recommending insoles, and I thought, okay, I might just try them. They're easy enough to order. But when they arrived, I realized that they were very uncomfortable, and they actually made the pain worse. I really started to examine my foot, and I was just standing there. I took some pictures even just to realize that I actually have more of a high arch, and the insoles actually made my foot even like more high, which meant that it basically bent outwards, if that makes sense. Long story short, it's just important that you really try to examine your foot, try to see if you have maybe flat feet that cause that. Are your trail runners, maybe is the cushion worn out? Do we have like really high arches? Something like that. Basically anything. Examining my legs, my foot really made a big difference for my recovery. I also tried different exercises, and I realized that I had really tight calf muscles. And that's actually a very common issue for hikers if you're not stretching, that after longer periods of walking that your tight muscles are not like used that much and basically become tight if they're not like stretched out in between or in the evening. And that was the case for me. And I was actually rolling my muscles with a cork ball, and at some point it just almost made like a cracking sound. It was just a strange noise, like if something was just come loose. I don't know, it's hard to describe. And it was a bit painful in that moment, but almost immediately after that I had such a feeling of relief. And I realized that and I think that was actually one of the biggest problems for me why I got plantar fasciitis, is because of my tight calf muscles. Maybe along with my shoes being worn out, because I had worn them for a couple of 100 miles already. So my tip number 4 is stretching. Do it as often as you possibly can. Since I was stuck on a campsite and basically had nothing to do, then to work on my recovery, I did those stretches 6 to 8, sometimes 10 times a day for around 10 minutes each time. And even more importantly, do these stretches, and I'm going to show you my exact exercises and stretches in a second here. Do them in the morning before getting up. So before your feet touch the ground for the first time in the morning, do them while you're still lying in bed in your tent. And honestly, all the exercises that made a huge difference, and they were actually a game changer. As soon as I started really doing them 6, 8, 10 times a day for a couple of minutes, I really started to see results and see improvement very, very quickly. And even if you're not struggling with plantar fasciitis, I would recommend doing stretches as a hiker, as a long distance hiker, every night for 5 to 10 minutes. I never did stretches before getting plantar fasciitis, but I'm never not doing it now, because it was so painful, and I was so happy once it was gone for good that I really want to do everything to prevent it from coming back. And if that means 5 to 10 minutes every night, that's so worth it. So now, tip number 5, I'm going to show you my exact stretches and exercises that I did. First off, I picked up a golf ball and also a cork ball, which is a bit of a bigger one. You can also get a smaller cork ball, but the size of a golf ball is ideal. I started to roll my foot for a couple of minutes. You can do front to back, but also side to side. And really try to get like into the tissue so that you can actually feel the band of tissue being active, but obviously you don't want it to be too painful. So don't overdo it, but just do it so that you can feel the effect on it, but not that it causes a lot of pain. Then what I also did, especially since I realized that my problems were very likely coming from my calf muscles, is I started rolling my calf muscles a few times a day. You can either do that with a bigger cork ball, that's what I did, or even with a water bottle. Another exercise that you can do for your calf muscles is standing in front of a wall and then having one leg bent and one leg straight with both heels like touching the ground, and then just hold that position for a couple of seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. And a third exercise is calf raises. So you basically are looking for a step or stair, something like that, just so that you can basically stand on something, but only with the front part of your foot actually touching the step, and your heel is basically hanging down from the step, and then you're just raising and lowering your foot. If you're having problems with ankle stability and you're thinking that this may have caused the plantar fasciitis for you, there are a lot of exercises and videos that you can find online. For example, there's a great video from Chase Mountains, who also suffered from plantar fasciitis, and in his video he focuses a lot on ankle stability and exercises for that. So definitely check them out if you're thinking that that may be the issue for you. I didn't do that many exercises because I usually hike and trail runner, so I feel like my ankles are quite stable and used to hiking, so for me that wasn't a big issue. And then last but not least, the exercises that helped me the most, I feel like, an exercise that I did every morning that are great to do if you're still lying down in your bed in your tent. First off is the toe grip. So basically grabbing your toes with your fingers and then just gently turning your toes in both directions, bending them to the front, to the back, turning them. Just doing that for 2 to 3 minutes. So you're basically activating the tissues, the muscles, everything in your foot. And then the second thing that I did every morning, at night, and during the day is actually flexing and pointing my feet. So doing this and this. Oftentimes, when you're searching for plantar fasciitis videos, you're only seeing exercises that recommend flexing your feet like this. So basically bringing your toes towards your knees. And that's actually a really, really good exercise to basically stretch out your plantar fascia, which runs along there. But then in one video I saw that someone, a doctor, recommended doing the inverse stretch too. So basically trying to bring your toes towards your heels and just alternating between those two positions, holding each position for a couple of seconds. And ideally you should feel the stretch in your calf muscles too. If you're doing the flexing, you can even use your hand to bring your toes closer to your knees and to basically stretch it out a bit more. And what you can also do to really get into the stretch is take a tissue or a small towel, something like that, put it on the ground and then try picking it up with your toes, so that you can see there's really a lot of action going on. Really the toes are coming towards my heels. Then hold it for a couple of seconds, release it. Before I saw this exercise, I was mainly doing, as I said, the flexing exercise, but what really made a difference for me was actually doing the inverse too. And I would just lie on my sleeping pad in the morning or at night before I went to sleep, just doing this. Yeah, it's one of the best exercises that really worked for me. And now for tip number 6. For me, it was switching to zero-drop, well-cushioned shoes. There is some controversy on that, if it actually helps or makes things worse even. So please be really careful here. It might not be for everyone. If you're prone to problems with your Achilles tendon, zero-drop shoes might also not be the best option for you, because with zero-drop shoes, the Achilles tendon has to bend more, or there's more stress on the Achilles tendon, and that can cause problems with it. So if you're prone to problems in that area, maybe you think really carefully if you're switching to zero-drop shoes. But for me, switching to zero-drop made a huge difference, and I think in the end really healed my plantar fasciitis along with the exercises that I just showed you. Zero-drop shoes are shoes where the heel and the toes are actually on the same level. So there's no height difference between the heel and the toes, and that can make your calf muscles work harder. And because I realized that I had really tight calf muscles, I thought it might be a good idea for them to work a bit more. Please keep in mind that switching to zero-drop shoes might take some time for adjustments, so it's not recommended that you switch to zero-drop shoes if you've never had them before and then just hike on. It will take some time and smaller distances for your feet to get used to zero-drop shoes. I ended up switching from a medium cushioned trail running shoe with a 5mm drop to the Ultra Olympus shoes, which are, as I said, they are zero-drop shoes, but they are very cushioned, as you can see. And having something with a good amount of cushion is generally, on a lot of sites and videos, is recommended for plantar fasciitis. I was really happy with them, and as I said, I think for me personally that it made my feet work a lot more, and I used different muscles. My calf muscles were less stiff and tight. For a bit of added cushion, I also used the Plantar Fasciitis insoles from Dr. Scholl's. They're not molded like into the shape of your feet, but they have like the sort of gel in the heel area, so basically where the pain is, it adds basically a layer of cushion, and I found it really comfortable, and I've used it throughout my hike. Okay, these are my top tips that helped me heal my foot pain, and my plantar fasciitis actually went away completely after about 3 weeks of rest, of exercise, of changing my footwear. But it was gone for good after that, and it never came back, and I'm really grateful for that. This is it for today's video. I really hope that you never actually need this video, but I hope you find it helpful anyway to prevent plantar fasciitis. If you want, you can save it for later to come back to in case you're unlucky to get plantar fasciitis, or even share it with someone who's suffering from plantar fasciitis. And if you are struggling with it at the moment, hang in there. I know how hard it is, I know how painful it is, and how miserable it makes you feel, especially if you're on a hike, on a thru-hike, and you just want to continue, you just want to hike on, you don't want to be stuck somewhere. Be patient, try the exercise, work on it, and I'm sure it'll get better very soon. I hope you've liked this video. If you have any questions or maybe your own tips to share, please leave them in the comments below so that others can benefit from them too. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to follow our next hiking adventures in Scotland in a few weeks. Thank you so much for watching, happy hiking, and see you next time.